Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, as you guys all know, threats towards poll workers, election officials, and other people who are just trying to do their jobs have increased exponentially in the MAGA era. Threats of political violence in general is just off the charts. And now there are at least 5 states that have reported the receipt or the interception of suspicious packages that were sent to election offices. The most recent state to report this disturbing news is California. On Thursday night of last week, the California Secretary of State's office issued a press release, and it said that 2 suspicious envelopes have been intercepted by the Postal Service. The envelopes were addressed to election facilities in Los Angeles and also Sacramento. And the Secretary of State has advised all election offices to, quote, take precautions before handling mail that arrives at their facilities. So this is the latest announcement that follows reports that election offices in Georgia, Oregon, Nevada, and Washington State, had all received suspicious envelopes containing white powdery substances. It was determined that in some of the cases, the powder had been laced with fentanyl. So Washington State was the first to report the receipt of these envelopes. 4 counties were targeted with fentanyl-laced mail, and so the offices all had to be evacuated. A police spokesperson from Tacoma, Washington, told a news outlet that one of the envelopes also contained a note and that it said, quote, something to the effect of stopping the election. However, the officer didn't mention a specific candidate or an issue, but a Pierce County official in the same state released photographs of the envelope that her office received and the letter. And she said that the letter they received mentioned that ballot drop boxes aren't safe. And it said, quote, end elections now. Stop giving power to the right that they don't have. We are in charge now, and there is no more need for them. And then the letter also included anti-fascist symbols, a pride flag, and they said a pentagram. I mean, way to try to frame the left there, genius. It couldn't be more obvious. You've got everyone fooled with those symbols because, you know, the left is so worried about ballot drop boxes. This reminds me of that idiot down south that I reported on. I don't know if you guys remember. That was the Trump supporter who called in death threats and pretended to be a member of Antifa. And he ended up getting a Civil War reenactment shut down because he left fake bombs on the fake battlefield. Anyway, I mean, they're so clueless. Like, oh yeah, all leftists use pentagrams in their letters. We're all a bunch of atheists and pagans and oh my God. Anyway, the first of these domestic terror incidents occurred back in August. This was during the time of the primary, and 2 envelopes were received at that time. So only one of them contained fentanyl. Some of the facilities are receiving envelopes containing only baking soda, but you know, until the authorities test each of the packages, they obviously have no idea if it poses any risk. One envelope that was addressed to the Fulton County, Georgia election facility was flagged by the U.S. Postal Service. So the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, he was notified on Wednesday of last week that the envelope is in transit and it's headed to their state from elsewhere in the country. And Georgia postal workers were keeping an eye out for it to try to stop it before it reached the election office. Now they tied that, I don't know how, they're not giving up, you know, their sources and methods, I guess you could say, but they tied it to the ones that have been received on the West Coast in Washington and Oregon State. So it appears to be the same person. So Raffensperger issued a press release on Thursday, and he said in part, quote, we're working with our state and federal partners to determine if any additional Georgia officials are being targeted. Domestic terrorists will not trample on our right to free and fair elections. Election officials should be free from fear and intimidation, which is why I've called on the General Assembly to increase penalties for election interference. We will work tirelessly to ensure that Georgia elections remain free, fair, and secure. And then Raffensperger told the media that he apparently lost his son to a fentanyl overdose 5 years ago. So he is all too familiar with how deadly this drug can be. And then Raffensperger added, quote, "This is domestic terrorism, and it needs to be condemned by anyone who holds elective office or wants to hold elective office anywhere in America. If they don't condemn this, then they're not worthy of the office they're running for." And remember, following the 2020 election, Raffensperger and his family were targeted relentlessly by Donald Trump supporters, by his terrorists. He and his wife received absolutely heinous, detailed death threats, sexual in nature, they said, against her. And the Colorado Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, just confirmed that she has received over 60 death threats since the 14th Amendment lawsuit was filed in her state to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. She had nothing to do with it. She has absolutely nothing to do with that. But they're targeting her anyway. In Oregon, an elections spokesperson told the Washington Post, quote, "The very charged interactions with patrons, voting or not, the aggressive pursuit of staff, we're starting to see that here as well. This has been a frankly frightening situation." And election offices are now reporting they've had to increase security. Some of them are screening visitors, and some have even installed bulletproof glass. This is beyond out of control. And we all know exactly where this comes from, what this stems from, what this is about, who caused it. This is the result of a narcissistic crybaby who can't just admit that he lost an election. So he and his minions fabricated all kinds of election fraud fairy tales and repeated them ad nauseum. The domestic terrorist attack on our nation's capital was caused by Trump, and so is this. And I fear this is just the tip of the iceberg. I fear we are headed towards an iceberg because his party refuses to tell the truth and to hold him accountable. So, really, this isn't just Trump's fault alone. This is the fault of every Republican official who refuses to speak out against his stochastic terrorism. It's that simple. And no, I'm not going to believe just because someone put a pride flag and a pentagram on a letter that this in any way came from left-wing people. That is ridiculous. Left-wingers want more people to vote. We have no intention of shutting down elections. No one on the left that I know or I've heard of wants to stop elections. That is ridiculous. We want to win back the House. We want to get more seats in the Senate. This is why they're always crying false flag, just like they think everybody's cheating in elections because they know they're the ones that are cheating in elections. Anyway, I will let you all know if I hear more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like this video, share it, become a subscriber if you have not, become a donor if you possibly can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.